Welcome back. So in this video, we will look at another front-end interview problem. So in this time, we'll be creating our own implementation of class name prop that you would have seen in some JavaScript libraries or framework like React. So React accepts a class name prop, which in turn returns a stringified version of all the values that you pass in the prop. So let's say I pass in foo and bar. It just returns a stringified version of foo bar, which appears in your DOM, in your HTML DOM as this stringified version. So if there and it also accepts certain other parameters like it has foo, and then if you pass in bar and its value is true, it returns foo bar. Similarly, if you pass in any object with key as string and the value as true, then it gives the key as it is. And similarly, if you pass in any integer as well, which is non-zero value, which is a truthy value, then also it returns this value as is. So here the answer will become bar space 1, right? And since it is null is a falsy value, then we won't get bars in the final output here. So it can accept a variety of arguments. So let's try to code this up. Um, we know that we will have a result, and then we will just return result. So why I'm doing array is because we can push all the stringified versions in the resultant array, and then we can join the resultant array with space, which will just return here. All right. Now we know that this ours is an array. Since I'm using a spread operator, I'm accumulating all the arguments that are passed in the class name function. I'm accumulating all the arguments at one place, and then this will become an array. And now we need to loop over the array. All right. So let's loop over the array ours dot for each item. Now let's check what is item here. All right. So if an item is a string, or if an item is a number and is non-zero number, then we just need to return this. If type of item equal to string, or type of, or we'll just if type of item equal to string and item also exists. If type of item is a string and it exists, we just need to push item into a result. Now, if item exists and type of item is equal to number, and item is not equal to 0, right? Item is not equal to 0. Then also we need to push the item, but we also need to convert this into a string. All right. So these are base cases here. Essentially, these two are base cases. So if an item is a string, we need to push this into result. If an item is a number and is non-zero, is a truthy number, we also then need to push it. Now we need to check whether if an item is an object, then what we need to do. Else if type of item is equal to object, right? Now if it is an object, we need to check over its keys. We need to loop over the object to check for its keys. So what we'll do is we'll do object dot keys item dot for each key, and then we will check if item key is a truthy value. If it is a truthy value, we need to push the key itself, right? So if we are here and we are looping over this object, if the item key is a truthy value, then we need to push just the key itself to result. So this is it. And we also need to check if item exists, if item is not null or something like that. Right. And now item can also be an array, right? Item can also be an array. And an array also has a type of object, right? So we first also need to check for object for array itself. If array dot is array item. If it is an array or if it is not an array, then we need to loop over the object. Right. Now if it's an array, what we need to do? If it is an array, we will loop over the elements in the array and then we will call this function again. So what we'll do is we'll do item dot for each sub item and then we will do const nested result is equal to class names. So class names takes in arguments. I'll pass in the argument as sub item and then we'll do res dot push nested result. All right. Let's try to run this and see if it works. So we'll see the output. First is foobar, which is correct. Next is foobar, which is correct. This is correct. This is empty string, correct. Foo space bar, correct. Bar A1, bar 1, ABC, and bar 1. All right. I think all the output seems to be correct here. Let's go over this thing again. We initialize a resultant array and then we join the resultant array to return a string. And then we loop over the arguments. We loop over all the arguments here, all the arguments that we have, and we check the types. First two are base cases. If it is a string or if it is a true number, we return. We just push the result, push the keys into the result itself, and then we check if it is an object. Now, if it's an object, it can either be an array or it can either be a dictionary or an object. So if it's an array, we call the function again with the sub item by looping over all the items in the array. Or if it's an object, we loop over all the keys in the object and check if the key is a truthy value. If it is a truthy value, we push the key into the result itself. So this was it. We just declared and did what the cases expected us to do. So in these type of cases, always first initialize a resultant variable, return a resultant variable, and then start checking for the base cases first. We loop over the arguments and we check for the base case. And then when it becomes an array, we call the class name function again because all the things that we need, all the things that can occur in the array are covered in this function itself, right? So this is why we call this function again because an array again will itself see this is an array as well, right? So we kind of expect the class name function to have an array. And since if we get an array, we just pass in the sub items in the class name function itself to get the nested result, and then we push the nested result into result. All right, this was it, and I'll see you in next one.